All right. So last session had just ended abruptly. We were talking about CPI, and so we had already started that the CPI is calculated for various workers, for various section of the individual consumers. The first is industrial workers. Okay, so this is comprising the all the organized sector workers of the urban population. Okay, uh, I would just okay. I don't have a way to. Maybe I can just write it here. Organized and urban. Okay. The second is CPI, which is the inflation index for agricultural laborers. Okay, these are the laborers who are working in farm. They are not the landowners. They can be landowners, farmers as well, but they are usually the landless laborers who are working on these farms. And the third is the rural laborers. These are the non-agricultural, okay, and working in the rural area and comprising of the labor segment which are doing the manual jobs. Okay, so these three measures are compiled by the Labor Bureau, which comes under the Ministry of Labor and Employment. Okay, this information is not very important. It's more of general knowledge, but we need to know the three kinds of CPI, and then we have the another measure of CPI, and these figures are usually published together. So you can consider it as one single entity. This is the CPI which is calculated for the rest of the rural population, rest of the urban population, and then there is a combined figure. Okay, and this is compiled by the National Statistical Office, which is part of MOSPI. MOSPI is Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Okay, these are just all the cabinet ministries of the government of India. Okay. Now, why so many measures instead of just one measure like the WPI? It's because we are talking about how inflation, mehengai, the price rise is affecting the various people of this country. We are not all in the same boat. Okay, we are in the same storm, but we have different kinds of boats. So some of us have large size boats, some have smaller size boats, some are just swimming on their own. So we have to take into account the plate of a person who is earning, let us say, 2 lakhs a month is not the in an urban setup is not the same as the plate of a rural laborer. So which is why we have various measures of the CPI, and these indices also change because the basket of products is changing. Okay, so uh, the people in urban areas and in the organized sector would not be having that much of the country liquor or the desi liquor or tobacco, raw tobacco, as compared to the person in the rural laborers. Okay, and the protein and nutritional intake of a rural laborer would be lesser, or very different from that of the person in the urban setup. Okay, a person in the rural setup would might be just consuming coarse cereal and rice. Okay, now do we need to know about all of these indices for the exam? No, you just need to know that there are multiple indices. Most of them have various base years. For example, the base year for industrial workers, and especially these two, is very old. And there is a suggestion by the government to change this base year to a more recent setup. But what all do we need to know here? It's that CPI combined, okay, which is a combine of rural and urban, calculated by MOSPI. Uh, so CPI all India combined at headline inflation. So we were talking about headline and core. My bad, I mentioned their core inflation, but at headline inflation, this is the primary tool which is used by the RBI to target inflation. So when RBI has to target inflation, it needs to know now what inflation we have to target, like what. inflation are we trying to control? Is that WPI? Is that the GDP deflator? So there has to be some number. So this is the uh, main thing since 2014. Basically, this has been used by the Monetary Policy Committee of the RBI. So CPI combined is a macroeconomic indicator. It has a base year of 2012. Only this, okay. Uh, Others have different base years. And what is CPI, Consumer Price Inflation Index? Sorry, this is for the consumer. So this is the measure which is, why do we call it as the macroeconomic indicator? First, it is used by RBI to target inflation using Monetary Policy Committee. Second, whenever you are talking about appraisal and you're saying, sir, you gave me just 4% appraisal, the inflation is 6%. I'm actually at a loss this year. Uh, if you have this conversation with your manager, what inflation are you talking about? You're talking about the CPI combined inflation. Okay. When government periodically revises the dearness allowance for its employees, say in the central government and state governments, and when the wage contracts are revised according to the Minimum Wage Act, so all of these calculations are, the reason which they give is to account for inflation, over time. So, for example, the DA has been revised at 17%, I believe, this time. So this is all done keeping the CPI metric in mind. Okay. And again, when you have to adjust your wages, salaries, pensions in real terms, negotiating the appraisal and everything, so you can use CPI for appraisals from this time onwards. Okay. Now, what is the composition? Now, when we are talking about CPI, unless specified, we are talking about CPI combined at headline inflation. The base year is 2012. This formula is important for the exam. Again, the formula is cost of basket in that month. That is the month in which we are considering, and the upon the cost of basket in base period multiplied by 100. We'll just do a small question on this, which might come up in the exam. Uh, First, let us just check what is the composition. So the food and beverages, of course, it is comprising of 50% because this is what the individual public is consuming. Uh, Tobacco was a part of this food and beverages, but interestingly, it has come up as a separate measurement. It was criticized a lot, saying that you're measuring tobacco separately, you're indirectly encouraging the production of tobacco. But the logic behind it is that tobacco is being used by the public of the country so much that it has to be put up in a separate category. Then you have fuel and light. We have already discussed in WPI that this is not the same as the fuel and light in WPI. So here we are talking about the refined petroleum, and the light is our the uh, electricity which we get at the retail rate, using our discoms and distribution companies. Then clothing, bedding, and footwear and housing. Miscellaneous is an interesting term. So we were discussing that WPI does not contain services. Um CPI does, but here it contains services like education, medical, recreation, and tourism, which is good because these are also the places where we are spending our money. Okay, as a individual, but there are certain services which are not yet included. Uh, so they include services like trade, okay, hotels, financing, insurance. Now just imagine we are not counting financing and insurance as part of CPI. So we really don't know that, and especially in the organized sector. So the insurance penetration in India is very low. Okay, this is one of the causes of concern. Every time economic survey and all the government reports talk about it, but at least for people in the organized sector, people who are working in corporates, we all have our kinds of insurances. So, for medical, for car, for, life, for, term life and all those things. And this insurance as a measure of inflation, it is not included in CPI. So we really don't know whether the insurance cost which we are facing as individuals, is it coming under CPI or not? Okay, then real estate is not included here. The reason is very intuitive. The kind of volatility which real estate has, if I start including it in the CPI, Do you think it would be able to give me a good picture? No, because it would be very volatile. So sometime like during COVID, I would be like, oh, inflation has really gone down because entirely it is being pulled up by the real estate, pulled down. And in today's time, real estate is booming like anything. So it has its own indices. We will discuss that. And then business services are not accounted here. Okay. So so much about CPI. Now we will just have this, we will try to do this quick question. Uh, Let us say we have a fixed basket of CPI in an economy which is only producing two kinds of fruits, uh, you know, 20 oranges and 10 apples. The base year for that economy for CPI is 2012, and they have given us the prices of oranges and apples. And we are assuming because it's a basket. See, this is not production, okay? Production is not 20 oranges every year. It will also be growing, but this is a basket which is fixed, and the prices are given for each of these years. And we have to calculate the cost of basket for each year. We have to calculate the CPI and the inflation rate. So I'll just add one more column here, and I would call it cost of basket. Okay. This question I had taken up from Ashok sir's PPT. So credit to him. So we have 10 oranges into, uh, sorry, the price of each orange is rupees 10 multiplied by 20 oranges. So this is 200 oranges plus again 15 rupees per apple into 10 apples. So that's 150. So this comes out to be 350, right? Similarly, this is 220 plus 150. So that comes out to be 370. Then it is 240 plus 160. That comes out to be 300 and 400. 260 plus 150. Again, 310 and 410. So this is the cost of, I might be wrong at calculation, but I believe I'm correct. Now I have to calculate the CPI. I know the formula for CPI. Let us try to recall it. And I have a page for myself. Okay, so CPI is, let us say for 2012 is the base year. So the CPI would remain zero. We have to always remember that these basket of goods, whether it is for WPI or for CPI, it is out of 100. So, the entire basket is assigned a score of 100. Okay. So what would be the CPI? It would be the price of basket in this year, 350, upon the price of basket in the base year, and the base year is also 2012. So again, it comes out to be 350 into 100. So the CPI is 1 in absolute terms, or if you talk in terms of percentage, it is 100%. You can use any of these in the exam, or you can just, to show that you are very intelligent, you can include both of them. So faculty will give the marks. This is part 2. So this is CPI for, please mention here that this is CPI for 2012 like this. And please try to put up these formulas elaborately. It would fetch us more marks. Then similarly, CPI for 2013, this is 370 upon 350. I'm just doing the calculation part, and I hope it is making sense to you. So again, this is 35.37. So this is 1 point something. 20. I believe it's 1.06 or 106% inflation. Okay. Basically not 106%. I would say this is 6% inflation. So CPI is 106%, but inflation is 6%. And how is that? This is the third part of the numerical. It says what is the inflation rate. So inflation rate, when I'm calculating, I can calculate either in terms of time rate, or I can calculate in terms of percentage. Here it is in terms of percentage. So it is final inflation, or CPI in 2013, I'll take more space. CPI in 2012 upon CPI in 2012 into 100. Yeah, simple arithmetic. So this comes out to be 106 minus 100 upon 100 into 100. So that comes out to be 6%. So that's the inflation. It's not 106%. So this is a measure of inflation. So in fact, after solving this, I would advise you to go for this metric only. Just avoid this. Even if you're mentioning percent, just at least try to put 1 or 1.06. Okay. So this is how you can calculate it for all the 4 years. Good question. If it comes up, it can give fetches good marks. Okay. Now a comparison between CPI and WPI. Okay. Uh, CPI includes the indirect taxes and the logistics. Reason being, because if I'm purchasing a packet of, let us say, Nutri cereals, I'm purchasing it from Easy Day or my grocery store, and I'm not purchasing them from the farmer directly. Okay, so when it is there on the shelf of a grocery store or a retail chain, it has already been counting the indirect taxes and logistics within it. Okay, if it has been shipped to me from Bangalore to Delhi, then the shipping and everything has been already included. This is something which was used to be included in WPI, but now we are not including in. And if I make a comparative analysis, so this is PPI, Producer Price Index. So if I talk from CPI to WPI to PPI, I would say PPI is the closest to raw materials. Okay, and this is the closest to consumer, the end consumers. This is somewhere in between. Okay, the difference between PPI and WPI is primarily indirect taxes plus subsidies plus logistics, transportation, convenience, handling cost, all those things, rishwat, the bribery and everything. That's something which is included. And the difference between CPI and WPI is basically the cost of middlemen. The people who are sitting in the Sadar bazaars or the wholesale markets, they are also going to earn their commission from it. So this is the difference between CPI and WPI, and of course GST. GST is also here in the taxes. Okay, so this is why we have different indices. Now you must be appreciating why inflation is calculated using so many matrices and not just one single matrix. Okay. Then in CPI, services are included, but in the miscellaneous terms. But again, not everything is included. We have already covered this. WPI does not cover services at all. Now this was a very beautiful comparison which I found, so I included it. This was just to show you how WPI and CPI, the nature of them differs. We have already discussed beyond this, but again, I will put up this comparison. Uh, so when I'm talking about CPI, I'm talking about services, something which is missing in WPI. And when I'm talking about WPI, I'm talking about minerals, something which is missing directly in CPI, because these minerals are somewhere in the finished product form already within CPI. So if I'm purchasing a talcum powder, I've already taken into account all the minerals which are present inside that talcum powder. Okay. Similarly, uh, services is a part which is not included in WPI. Even if you have used some financial or some business or some insurance services in your wholesale business. So this is why we have different matrices. Again, CPI contains finished goods which are already there on the shelf of a retail or grocery store. WPI deals with raw and intermediate products. Of course, raw is more for the PPI part, but we don't have any PPI. Again, electricity price, I think we have already discussed all of this. Yeah. Uh, Similar to PPI, there is a CPI for service sector, which is under review. Again, there is a committee, so Governments do this all the time. They create committees from experts. They submit their recommendations and then they sit on recommendations. So basically, this recommendation is still under consideration. It has not been. But the reason why this is important and why they have put up this recommendation is because India, and you would appreciate this more in the open macro session if we have it, that services is a very important part of Indian GDP. Services account for, uh, I'm not sure, but I think it accounts for almost 45% of India's GDP. Let me just check it once. Okay, it would take a lot of time to check that. So, anyways, yeah, it 35%. No, 45 ही होना चाहिए. Anyways, but yeah, so services is accounting for a lot of this, and even in the balance of payment part, services are a very important part of balance of payment because when we are there on current account deficit, okay, current account deficit is going down. It is the services and the remittances sector which actually pulls us up, in the case of India. So India has a very well established IT sector. Okay, most of us are in the IT industry. Then we have a very well established financial sector, financial consultancy, financial advisories, and then we have financial companies which are actually engaged right from accounting to auditing. We have entire gamut there. India has a very well established insurance sector. Okay, hotel and hospitality, tourism, medical tourism, medical services, the services of a doctor, chartered accountants, architects. All of these are not accounted, and they can actually. So, how much are we paying for these services? How much am I paying for my doctor, for my CA? And how that rate is increasing or decreasing. If we have one such indices, one such index for reviewing, it would actually be a very great insight. Okay. Now, talking about other indices, not at all required for the exam point of view. Just less than a minute here. The Residex is the residential index. Okay, it is created by National Housing Board, Housing Bank of India. Then RBI has its own housing price index. These are two indices to measure the uh, you know inflation in the housing and real estate sector. And then we have multiple such indices. They keep on coming up as creative uh, measures to account for various things. You can have an index for environment. I mean, these things come up all the time and they might be important for you know other exams, but not for this particular MBA course. Okay. uh, a very important uh, topic here, which is deflating nominal variables. We have already discussed about this in theory. I'll just show you this formula. So this is, we discussed about the definition of deflating. Okay, so deflating is just removing the bloated effects of inflation from something. And how does deflation happen? Let us say you have the nominal value of y an year y and nominal value in an year x. So you can just use this formula, CPI of y upon CPI of x equal to nominal value of y upon nominal value of x. And if you have to calculate it for y, you take x on the right hand side and calculate it. Okay. Again, CPI is nominal value upon real value. So from this formula, we have just calculated the real value. So if you have to calculate the real value of anything, and in the Ashok sir slide, I'll just show you. Slide number 25 and 26 have these questions. But let us say you have a question, something like my base year is 2012, and take one commodity, let us say tomatoes, and the price of tomatoes in 2014 was rupees 100 per kg, and in 2024 it is rupees 300 per kg, and I can see that it has increased 3 times, but I want to know in real values how much it has increased. So what I can do, I can find the real value as uh, nominal value upon CPI. So let us say CPI is I have to take CPI also now. So let us say CPI is one one point okay 106% or 1.06. So yeah, it will be nominal value क्या होगा इसका 300, because the real value in 2024 is the nominal value at 2024 300 upon 106 into 100. So this will uh, come out to be something, and this would be the real value of tomatoes in 2024. Obviously, it will be more than 100, as you can see, more than this value, but not so much as 300. Okay, so it will just deflate the value. So this is the basic gist of these kind of questions, and I'll show you how he has asked it in slide number 25 and 26. Yeah, suppose a worker earned, I don't think I can edit, use my pen here. No, I cannot. So suppose a worker has earned 20,000 rupees in 2006, and how much is this worth in 2016 if the CPI in 2006 was 119 and in 2016 it is 269. Now this is using the double formula which we had. So in 2006 it is 30,000 and 119 and 269. So basically using this formula, so salary in 2013 or 12, whatever it was, that would be salary in 2006 into uh, CPI in 2013 upon CPI in 2006. Okay, so we can just solve this using this formula. Let me know if you have any doubts and we can discuss this. So this was about inflation. Now, just one topic. This I'm keeping it at the end because I'm not sure how important it is. But this is about inflation targeting by the RBI. We have already discussed few things. So RBI is the monetary authority of the country. Okay. So what happened was in 2015, the RBI and Government of India entered into a agreement which is known as Monetary Policy Framework Agreement. Okay, it amended the RBI Act 1934. उसके preamble में it inserted a clause that the main part is that there will be a monetary policy committee. Okay, it is supposed to be a six-membered committee, okay, which is going to determine the policy rate. So earlier this was determined ad hoc by RBI, but now they have started inflation targeting. And this is important because this is discussed in SIR's PPT as well in the end. So I will just read out the snippets from there. I'll just tell what I recall from there. So this committee is six-membered. Okay. Uh, Composition is four members are from RBI, usually the deputy governors of RBI, three of them, and the governor of RBI is the chairman. Then there are two members who are from very prominent standing in the field of economics, finance, and commerce. Usually professors and ex policymakers and ex economic advisors and so on. Uh, so members of IES and economic services and all those things, and they are expected to meet I think twice in a year. I'm sorry, eight something in something. So I'm not sure how frequently they are expected to meet. Maybe twice in a quarter, and they are the most important thing is that they have to target the inflation to make it stable at 4% with an upper limit of +2 and a lower limit of -2. So the threshold is from 2% to 6%, and 4% ka anchor is the main where they have to keep the inflation. Which inflation is it? This is the CPI combined, okay, headline inflation, and with the base year of 2012. This has to be maintained at 4% to between 2 to 6%. Okay, so it's 4% with a threshold of +2 and -2. Okay, if the RBI fails to meet the target, then it has to send a report to the central bank stating the reasons and what are the steps it has taken. And also, if it fails to meet it for the 3 consecutive quarters, then it is a breach of failure of monetary policy. Then the government can. Usually there is no action, but they have to explain it. Like they just cannot fail it like that. So we have failed it a few times. Like in 2020, it failed from June to November. Again, it was the COVID time. Again, in the May of 2021, it was breached due to higher food and fuel prices. All of that doesn't have to be remembered, but yes, under normal circumstances, it won't be failing. It is only in these extraordinary circumstances that it fails. Okay. There are some criticisms of it, this trades of the growth and everything, but this is how it is. You have to tackle inflation. Criticism would always be there. Uh, I'll just check what he has mentioned about the CPI. I mean the MPC. Anything important? No, I don't think so. These graphs he has mentioned, but apart from looking at them and interpreting them and watching the trend, there is not much use. He is not expecting us to memorize these graphs or the trends. Okay. Now, one last concluding note on inflation is, I mean, inflation as a topic is now over. The concluding note is the trade-off between inflation and growth. Okay. So what happens is this monetary policy committee of RBI, what it will do in case of inflation, okay, it will use the expansionary or hawkish or uh, sorry, in case of inflation, it will use the contractionary or dovish or the easy money policy, uh, sorry, dear money policy to cut down the rates. So basically, reduce what we call as uh, that policy rate, Sierra or something. I can't believe I'm not able to recall it, but sorry about that. I think the night is hitting deep. So I just forgot that it is known as repo rate, and using deflation during deflation times, it is going to increase the repo rate. So uh, we know that if I'm going to reduce the repo rate, okay, if policy rate as we call it or repo, it is reduced. Sorry, it is increased. So there is some impairment, but because you have already learnt about it, so I think you can correct yourself. So if the policy rate or repo rate is increased, it reduces the liquidity. Okay, and which means that there is less money to save or invest, which means that growth is going for a toss. So, and when growth is going for a toss, inflation usually happens when there is uh, employment at a high. But when growth is going for a toss for a long time, this can also cause unemployment. But usually we don't go up till this tipping point. We only, the RBI only increases the repo rate up to the point that this inflation can be contained, and then it again eases the repo rate. Okay, we have had some criticism, especially with Dr. Rajan and Urjit Patel. Both of them were not very keen to reduce the repo rate. They were like, let us not be very enthusiastic so soon. Let us wait and watch. So they kept the repo rate unchanged for a long time, after which they had also stepped down. Uh, but usually, we do not reach up to this stage where unemployment has started rising, but it could happen. So we have to understand that some amount of inflation is important. And if we talk in terms of, in the words of, I think he was Mr. Rangarajan, the ex-governor of RBI, yeah, Dr. C. Rangarajan, he says that growth is a marathon, while this overheating and this slowing down, they are the temporary pauses to gain greater strength. So it is very much important to have some, you know, overheating. So overheating is a situation when demand is far exceeding the supply, and it will always happen when you have a growth. So that's the graph of economy, and that's how it goes. So some amount of these booms and bursts are very important, but eventually the trajectory has to be like this. So this was just a concluding note. We are done with the topic of inflation. Thank you so much, everyone.